We honor the steadfast support of Dr. Herbert Yi, who passed away last summer, just about a year ago now. Dr. Yi was an early supporter who believed in the power of the history within this museum. His father helped build railroads in China, so perhaps the passion for trains ran in the family. For too many years, the contributions of Chinese immigrants who not only built the railroad, but contributed so much to the development of modern California were not recognized. We are all here today because of those who are willing to move across the world and forge a new life through hard work that was built on the faith that tomorrow would bring a brighter day. Dr. Yi lived that life. In a time where racially motivated violence is growing towards the Asian American community, let this be a place that celebrates the contributions of Asian Americans and immigrants and their proud history. That is the greatest calling a museum can have. To be an institution where everyone can see themselves represented, regardless of who they are or where they are from. To be seen, acknowledged, and respected. To be shown the dignity that everyone deserves. As we think of those we have lost, please, if you have a glass of champagne with you, I'd ask for you to join me to raise a glass and remember those that we have lost, those that came before us, and to those who will follow and keep this institution strong for years to come. Now, I'd like to invite up to the lectern Dr. Wesley Yi. Someone join me? The Yi family have been ardent supporters of this museum, and Wes, who's a member of our board, is no exception to that whatsoever. To honor Dr. Herbert Yi's contribution and the extension of the entire Yi family, a boulder of Sierra granite carrying a bronze plaque shall be placed here in the Sierra scene. The plaque, both in Chinese and English, will read, "The Chinese railway worker experience is generously supported by the Herbert K. Yi and Inez F. Yi Foundation." Well, we were hoping to have it here tonight. The global supply chain has thrown some delays at us, so we would like to present to you, to your family here, this plaque. That is a mock-up of the one that will be placed here in a couple of weeks, in dedication and in honor of all that your family has done for this museum, for the people here in Sacramento. Thank you so much. All of your generous support. We will invite the family back and do a private dedication when it is completed. On behalf of the foundation, I thank you, the entire family, for your generosity and everything that you've done. Yes.
This is a special evening, and thank you for everyone who's come, our Spike members and my fellow board members, Ty and Jim, and of course all our family. Thank you to the family that we all honor our father, Dr. Herbert K. Yi, who's been our patriarch, and we're fortunate to have my uncle Franklin and Sandra here that keep us together and keep honoring. We honor Franklin and Sandra, who helped actually get the Yosemite laundry store into a Chinese museum. So we're all involved with history. We all love what our ancestors did for us to make it better for us, and we're grateful for all of you to come here tonight and to be with us today. And especially our controller, Betty Yi, our state controller, Betty Yi, thank you for taking time to come here today and spending some time with us. And I know you have a very busy schedule. Dad first got involved with the Railroad Museum back in 1969 when they had the, I think, first rail fair. And everything went well here. We had the mayor here and the governor at the Confucius Church, and we had 500 people at the event, and it was well received. Unfortunately, things didn't go so well at Promontory Summit. It's called Promontory Summit. I always call it Promontory Point, but it's called Promontory Summit in Utah. First, there was like probably 100 Chinese people that went all the way on the train back to Promontory Summit. And then we had a big celebration there. But unfortunately, Philip Choi, our resident historian who helped do Canton footprints with my sister-in-law Karen, who was also involved with this updated panel exhibition. So I want to call out Karen, my sister-in-law. Anyway, they went to Promontory Summit during the same time as we were having the event in Sacramento, so my father was here. And then they, first of all, they said, okay, Philip Choi, you're on the agenda, but sorry, you can't speak. And they just kind of neglected the Chinese involvement on building the railroad. Second, Secretary of Transportation John Volpe said it was only Americans can build this railroad, this magnificent railroad, which is a magnificent railroad. But 10,000 Chinese were not American citizens and were not allowed to be American citizens during that time. So that was another slap in the face. Then, if you notice, there's a plaque on the wall here dedicating to, and it shows up here on one of the panels too, dedicated to the Chinese 100th anniversary of this bronze plaque that the Chinese made and paid for it themselves and brought it to Promontory Summit. Somehow that got displaced and lost. So we had to make another one, and luckily, fortunately in '81 when the Railroad Museum was built, we made sure it got stuck on the wall, and so that's the downside. Now, when the Railroad Museum was built, we have this great group, the director Walter Gray, and I know Marion Helming's here, and so Walter Gray embraced my father and brought in the CSRMF, involved my dad into the Railroad Museum Board, and he was very well engaged, and he loved the people, John Gilmore and all, Denny Ansbach, just the wonderful group here, and he was very happy to be involved with the Railroad Museum because they also included the Chinese history. One more thing is this Sierra scene, I don't know if it's called the Sierra, this wasn't here when the Railroad Museum was first built, so that was another little slight. It took Art Agnos, who was assemblyman at the time, to appropriate, and of course he was representing Chinatown, San Francisco. He had to appropriate another $100,000 from the state assembly and the Senate to get this scene built, because there was nothing here when the Railroad Museum was built. So it was kind of another issue, but luckily they recognized that. The Railroad Museum recognized it. The people here all recognized that the Chinese were involved with building the western half of the Transcontinental Railroad, and it was magnificent. I was fortunate to speak right here at the dedication of this exhibit. I think it was probably 83 or 84, and it was because my father was out of town at the time. So I've been involved with the museum, not as a board member, but just being with my father, knowing that he loved this museum, he loved the people, he loved the leadership, and it shows to this day what we're doing, and we're doing it very well. The funds are being well used, and the money to the vision of the Thai is going up as we speak in the lobby. So I'm so grateful for all the and the docents that are helping. So I'm so grateful for all their dedication and support. As I asked my dad why he was involved in the California State Railroad Museum for so many years, he did so because it honors the people. I mean, I can't tell you what a cab Ford and a different diesel and whatever it is going on, but my dad, he knows, Dr. Herbert, he knows the history of the people of China. And I know Freeman's here, whose ancestor actually built the railroad. So Freeman Lee, thank you for your family's dedication. And he was just happy that, we could honor the Chinese and all the peoples that worked on the railroads, the porters and all the people that just from all different nationalities that worked and hard labor to support their families. So I want to thank again, appreciate all the family that came, my brother Alan and all our extended family, so that we could be here to witness this commemoration. Also, I wanted to mention that it was about 20 years ago that I think Daryl Cleaner did the mural here, and then he was able to include my dad's face on as a teetotaler, not teetotaler, but the tea carrier on this mural. So again, the museum recognizes the involvement and the dedication and the history and the giving of the Chinese people that came before us to make this a better place, and to educate our children, and to educate us senior people to know what's going on in this great state in California, and making this museum a very great place. So again, I want to thank Ty Smith, our director, whose vision is just incredible. I want to thank John Fraser, who helped our district superintendent to keep things moving along. And of course, primarily Tim Schroffer, our president and CEO, for really making this happen, because it's like drilling. The Chinese had to drill through granite, very few inches at a time, but he was able to get this dedication and monument for Dr. Herbert Yee, our father and our grandfather, and for all the generations. We have over 7 generations here, maybe even 8 in California, in the Yee family. Is just appreciative, and I want to thank you all very much for coming tonight. Appreciate it. David, would you like to say a few words, please? This is my nephew David, who was a famous urologist.
I tell my kids' friends I'm a pee-pee doc, but people understand that. When I say urologist, they say neurologist? No, urologist. So I want to thank Uncle Wesley, Liza Trofer, Director Smith for this opportunity to say a few remarks and to tell a story that Grandpa used to tell me when I was a kid. But before I do that, I really want to recognize California State Controller Betty Yee and her husband Stephen Jacobs for coming here. Betty has done a wonderful job in being a superb steward of California, which is the 5th largest economy in the world. So she's basically the CEO of our CFO of our state. So thank you so much. I did invite the governor and his family, but unfortunately his scheduling secretary, Kelly Matson, said he sends his regrets. But I know Grandpa would be pleased to see everybody here. He had a very deep love of the California State Railroad Museum and its people. His focus in terms of philanthropy was primarily on health and education, but he also had a great love of the California State Railroad Museum. He always talked about, to me, about, he called it geographic philanthropy. Where he traveled or where he went are places that he felt deeply connected to. So I wanted to tell a story about when I was a kid. He used to tell me the story about how he came into the personal possession of the golden spike. And I saw almost a fantastical story. I said, how is that possible? How is this priceless artifact, this historical artifact, came into the possession of my grandpa for a short period of time? Well, it all started back in 1969. At that time, the Sacramento Mayor, Richard Marriott, had tasked a great Sacramentan, Ed Cabatalade Sr., who was also part of the driving force with Dr. Denny Anspach in getting this museum off the ground. But Ed Cabatalade Sr. was a true patriot and actually was known as Mr. Camellia. If you remember back in Sacramento, back in the 70s and 80s, they used to have the Camellia Festival, and he was known as Mr. Camellia. But he knew my grandpa, and he called up. His grandpa told me, he called him up and says, "Herb, I need your help. We're going to have the Sacramento Gold Spike Centennial Celebration, and we need the golden spike." And you know, if anybody knows about the rivalry between Cal and Stanford, well, Ed Cabatalade went to Cal, And fortunately, Grandpa was a Stanford man. So this golden spike was located at the Stanford University Museum. And so I think that helped. I think it helped that Grandpa has just been reappointed to the California Board of Dental Examiners, and he was a Stanford man that he could get it done. So Grandpa goes, okay, we're gonna go up to the Stanford University Museum, and we're just gonna bring the golden spike back to Sacramento. And that just seemed fantastical to me, just to do that. But back in 1969, that's what they did. So Grandpa, with Edgar Madeley and Judge Cheryl Herbert, who was the U.S. District Judge of Eastern California, they drove up to Palo Alto, and they met, I'm assuming, with the museum director. And the museum director, and they tell me the story that they placed the golden spike, this priceless artifact that combined the Central Pacific and the Union Pacific Railroads together back in 1869. They just put it in this little cute velvet pouch and gave it to Grandpa. And fortunately, it made it back to Sacramento. There was no armed guards or security or even the CHP, but they drove it back. They put it in the trunk of their car, and they drove it all the way back to Sacramento. But the story doesn't end there, because during their drive back to Sacramento, it was lunchtime, and somebody was getting kind of hungry. So they said, let's stop by for lunch. And so apparently they were in Fairfield, I believe, and they stopped off for lunch at the Howard Johnson Hotel, and the golden spike was safely in the trunk of the car. But thank God that it didn't get lost, and it made its way back to Sacramento. The funny thing is, several years later, during the opening of the Railroad Museum, I think it was 1981 during Rail Fair, they asked Stanford University Museum if they could procure the golden spike again, and they said, of course you can, but this time it's going by armored car and the CHP. And so that was the story that Grandpa used to tell me that I enjoyed. But the golden spike is a fabulous thing. We actually there were two golden spikes made by the David Hughes family. And Grandpa told me that the original golden spike, the one that was at Promontory Point in Utah, is now at the Stanford University Museum or the Cantor Arts Museum. But unbeknownst to the general public, in 2005 it became known that the second golden spike, which is in this museum, was known to the public, and it was acquired by the California State Railroad Museum. So we actually have our own version of the golden spike, which actually has the correct date, May 10th, 1869. The original golden spike, they thought it would be May 8th, but it was actually May 10th. A little trivia for you, for those who enjoy Jeopardy. All right. Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the story that Grandpa used to tell me as a kid.
Vegetables, cheese. You got a plate, Joe? Yeah, you want to grab one cracker? And then there's tomatoes. There's bread. Beef skewers. Salami, you can have a little bit of salami. Okay. How's the cake?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. What is it, chocolate? Or?
It's like raspberry.
Can I get a plate? Yes, you can grab a plate. Look, there's brownie cakes. And